When the Melbourne Derby was played on the 17th of December 2022 between Melbourne City and Victory in the A-League that season, it wasn't like any match played between the two sides before. There was a tense, almost dark atmosphere hanging over the stadium in the center of this nation's usually bright and happy coastal jewel in the south of the country. The fans were chanting louder than normal. Flares were lit and firecrackers were being hurled towards the pitch by both sets of fans. For a nation where its latest iteration of a professional football league was only in its 20th year and essentially still in its infancy, the aggression hanging in the air was more akin to a political protest than a sports match taking place on a sunny afternoon. But the events that unfolded here are actually not as uncommon as they appear at first glance. And football, despite being a simple sport, has since its establishment had a subconscious impact on the minds of fans around the globe. Bruised muscles and broken bones, discordant strife and futile blows, lamed in old age, then crippled withal, these are the beauties of football. This is a 16th century Scottish poem about ball games, the ancient and distant ancestor of modern codes of football. Pretty dark, right? Well, more often than not, the only time in history we hear anything about football, it is in this light. In 1314, we know people played an early form of football because King Edward II banned it. People were dying playing the sport, accidentally and otherwise. In fact, they were getting so riled up by it that sometimes it would incite riots between opposing football mobs after particularly rowdy matches. The only way we can see football in the past is through the echoes of its passion. Even 700 years ago, people were forming tight-knit groups around the game. It was them against the world. And when they were standing side by side, logical thinking seemed to go out of the window. Let's get back to Melbourne, where in the 20th minute, everything had flipped on its head. Just a few days before the match, the APL, the football association in the country, had made an announcement which had resulted in a media frenzy. For the next 3 years, the A-League playoff final would be hosted in Sydney, rather than the stadium of the highest placed team at the end of the regular season. In one commercial transaction, they had taken away the hopes of a potential home final from teams around the nation. Fan groups around Australia and even some professional players had voiced their concerns about this decision, and the fans in Melbourne were not happy. During the game, both sets of fans held up messages protesting the new decision. But as we've seen is ingrained in a collective mob of football fans, something switches, and at a certain point, holding up banners was no longer enough. Tensions reached a boiling point when the Victory fans started throwing flares onto the pitch, one of which was at the Melbourne City goalkeeper, Tom Glover. Glover, simply trying to play a match of football and clear debris from the pitch, threw it back in the direction of the football mob behind his goal. Unfortunately, it landed right in the middle of them. This immediately resulted in the enraged supporters charging onto the field. Multiple people were injured during the melee. One of them was Glover. Someone in the mob had picked up a metal bucket filled with sand and thrown it at his head, concussing him. The mob mentality had taken over, against the better judgment of those involved, as these men were now assaulting the very players of the sport they were fans of. On the surface, this looks like a thoughtless crime from a bunch of hooligans, but the events that unfolded here go far beyond just this group of bucket-slinging goons, and it goes deeper into the human psyche than you've probably ever imagined. Humans are quite simple. King Edward II already knew this in the 1300s. Remember when he banned football in his kingdom? Well, that wasn't just down to him being a tyrant. People were not only getting hurt by the sport, they were also forming organized groups around it. To put it simply, they were forming tribes. Ever since the start of human history, tribes have been essential to human survival. If you weren't part of one, you were an easy target to either kill or capture and take your resources. And this has remained deeply rooted inside of every single person, whether they realize it or not. Early forms of football show this playing out in real time, like Shrew Tuesday in Derby, where it was one parish tipped against another. In Dorking, it was the east side of town against the west. In both instances, battle lines were drawn, groups were formed, and when you're part of a tribe, psychological triggers activate. You must win, and you must overcome the others. It's a matter of survival. In most cases, when it comes to deeply rooted human sociological behaviors, logic goes completely out of the window. This is why throughout history, the main thread of evidence of football being played at all is court cases and crime records of players and fans. It wasn't fixture results or tactical breakdowns. Shrew Tuesday was shut down by the English government in the 1800s, with the military being brought in to break up play, which was becoming more violent by the day between the opposing teams. Football provides the perfect platform to create modern versions of tribes, as outlined in a 2016 research paper by the University of Amsterdam. Football clubs are pseudo-tribes. But believe it or not, the entire world of football, including your favorite club, are totally aware of this phenomenon and have tricks up their sleeve so that as soon as a ball gets kicked, something switches inside of you. For clubs to solidify passion in the hearts of fans, they have to perfectly touch on these sociological triggers to gain the maximum amount of support possible. They must align each pillar of connection. Firstly, geography. We are London, Madrid, or Amsterdam. Then comes their identity. Maybe it is youth and attacking, or defensive and calculated. More often than not, clubs align their tactics and players with styles that best fit the geographic surroundings. Take Feyenoord in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, traditionally a city of hard-working dock laborers and sufferers of massive hardships during World War II, a city of labor and industry. The fans don't identify with flashy players as much. They would much rather see a less technical player work hard and give his blood, sweat, and tears for the shirt, like they do every single day. Meanwhile, their arch-rivals in Amsterdam have a history of producing technically gifted artists. Well, art isn't something new to the city. Some of the greatest artists of all time resided here, and Amsterdam is renowned for its freedom and liberal approach to life. They don't want to see a boring player work hard. They want to see a player try new things and be creative. Their players are coached and raised in the same manner. Why? Because this pseudo-tribe is reflecting its surroundings to garner the ultimate support and passion from its members. And it is what results in the deepest possible connection with fans. Amplify this with the club using the city's colors, history, and mottos, and in other ways like the kit and crest, and for fans, it can very quickly become us against them, something which can turn sour fast. Our modern world might be free from tribes, but tribalism remains. Football offers a unique way to connect with others. More than ever, society is fractured when it comes to interactions. Football is one of the few things people can turn to and talk about with neighbors, strangers, and colleagues. It's an exchange labeled as social capital in psychological studies. In other words, you can use your knowledge and connection over football to garner goodwill with others. And with a majority male-dominated fan base, it allows for a unique opportunity to release emotions stifled in other areas of life. When your team scores or loses, you finally have permission to feel. There's a reason why you can likely find your usually well-mannered father suddenly screaming at the TV during a football match, or droves of men crying after a lost international. Football fandom is a shadow culture that underlies the world it has grown out of. It's a perfect dance between history, the present, and the future. A world filled with different classes, barriers, and challenges, and media outlets that specialize in amplifying existing divides and rivalries. Football is one of the last remaining frontiers where deeply rooted human needs can be openly expressed. You can find your people. You can find your tribe. And sometimes these deeply rooted sociological outlets will spill over. into rioting, violence, and buckets filled with sand hurled at players who, at the essence, are simply trying to kick a ball into an opposing goal. What do you think about tribalism in football? Have you found yourself losing your cool during a match? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Have a great day and goodbye.